Hello everybody. Today we're going to be looking at how to customize your Sage 50 Accounts desktop. My name's Laura and I'm a Learn Facilitator here at Sage, and I'm going to be hosting the webinar today. I've also got Michael on hand in the background, along with Matt and Abby as well, just to answer any of your questions there. But we've got around 45 minutes booked in today, so we can have a good look at things in the software. So before we get started, just some housekeeping rules. So just as usual, your mic will be muted automatically, but you'll see that there is a little question icon on the toolbar where you can submit any questions that you may have for my colleagues there. So just make sure that you pop them into there just to keep them busy. And I've also included some slides in the handout section as well. There are some links at the end which you might find useful because there is quite a bit of information to go through today. So if you do want to download those, just make sure that you do that during this session. There's also a printer-friendly version as well, if you'd like to make some notes on those as well. So today I'll be giving you an introduction into some tips and tricks for using and customizing your Sage 50 Account software. Following that, I'm going to go through a series of demonstrations within the program so you can see how that works. Don't worry if you're thinking there's a lot to take in, though. You will get a recording of the webinar about an hour after it ends there, just to refer back to. There's also a great guide which I'm going to show you as well, which also covers everything that we're going through there too. So you've got that to refer back to. And I will be providing those useful links just at the end there. It just takes you to our help centre. So it just means you can go through it at your own pace, just with there being quite a bit to cover. And then we should have some time at the end just to get through any of those questions. But don't worry, if we do sort of miss anything on there, we will get back to you via email. So Sage 50 Accounts has built-in tips and tricks that make it easier to customize things and save you time. It can make it easier just to find items within large lists of records or transactions. For example, adding in alternate row colors to the lists in each module. There's also different selection styles when selecting multiple records as well. You can configure your desktop, which includes hiding what you don't need, making the options that you do use easier to find. You can also hide deleted transactions and inactive accounts from your activity lists, things like activity windows and your reports as well. And you can also save time by using function keys to speed up your data entry, access options quicker, and switch between your mouse and your keyboard. So what I'll do now is I'll pop into my system and we can have a look at some of these options in a bit more detail. So the first thing that I want to show you is the practice and the demonstration data. So I'm currently in my live company data at the moment, and I'm just going to show you how to switch to your demonstration data. So if you click on File on the very top left-hand corner there, we're just going to go to Open, and we're going to go to Open Demo Data. So if I click on that, what it does is if it does prompt you for a login on there, it would just be the manager by default for the username, and the password is blank on there. But the demo data is completely separate from your live company record. So you'll see at the top now, if you've gone into yours, you'll have the same as I've got, which is Stationery and Computer Mart UK on there. And if we go into customers, you'll see we've got a standard set of customers, suppliers, you've got bank accounts, everything's in here. It's just a standard set of data that's just created by Sage on there, where you can go into it, you can try out new features and routines or transaction types without the risk of corrupting or altering any of your real data, so you can have a play around with it in there. Your practice data is just the same, so if we go to File in the top left-hand corner and Open, and then if we go to Open Practice Data, we'll just get that message just saying it's going to close any open windows. I'm just going to say yes to that on there. If you're using version 30 or above on there, you'll get the choice to use a complete set of blank data, which is good for things like following through a transaction from start to finish without anything else interfering it. So you can just see the whole transaction without any other data obscuring anything on there. But if you're using version 30 or above, you'll also get the option to restore a backup of your own data and experiment with your own customers, suppliers, and transaction records without affecting your live data. So that's ideal for testing new workflows, or if you want to run a VAT submission just to see how that's going to look before you actually do it in your live data, or running things like year-end routines as well. So you can restore a data, set up your backup in there just by browsing to your backup and just continuing that way. But if I just click on blank data, You'll have this little tick box down here. I've used it before where I've just popped in a transaction just to see it through from start to finish. So it'll either save that data for you, or if you untick that, just click continue. I'll just show you the complete blank set of data on there. And obviously, if you're using an earlier version, this is what you would get. You would get this blank canvas on there where you can have a look at just popping transactions and information into. And it even tells you along the top that you're currently in the practice data on there and how to go back to your company data. But if I go into customers, you'll see there's nothing in here. Suppliers, transactions. So there's nothing in here. It's a complete blank canvas. So that's good for practicing anything that you're not too sure on as well. So I'll go back into my live data. So it's just going into File at the top, Open, and Open Company Data. Just that window popping up just to let me know that I'll lose any unsaved data on there. That's fine. And then I'm just going to click on my company to open it. And just let that come back up on there. And then we can have a look at configuring toolbars. So I'm just going to pop in my login there. Go back into my live data. So another thing you can do is configure your toolbars as well, just making it a bit more personal to yourself, just narrowing down the information that you actually need so you haven't got anything else in the way there. So down the left-hand side, you've got this panel with all of your the different areas that you'd be using, so your customers, your quotations, etc. If there's anything in here that you're not using, you can just remove it from here. So if you just right-click anywhere on an open space there, you'll see you've got all of the items shown on there. They've all got a tick next to them. Anything that you want to remove, if you just click on it, so I've clicked on diary, it's just taken it out there for me. It's still there in the background, but it's just removing it and tidying it up. So if you don't use departments, you can click on departments, it'll just take that out for you. So it just tidies it up so you're only seeing what you're actually using in the program. If you wanted to go back to add them back in again, it's just simply right-clicking and just click on it and it pops it back in there. And you can always just go back to the defaults as well by right-clicking, clicking on Use Defaults, and it'll pop everything back in there. So it just takes you back to the starting point again there as well. You can also configure your toolbars across the top as well. So in any of the areas, you'll have obviously your icons across the top of here. It might be that you're not using all of them. So if you wanted to remove some of them, just so it makes it a bit more tidy, and then the ones that you are using, it's just easier to find them. If you right click anywhere along here, you can take things out. So if I want to take out my request direct debit payment, I want to take out these items here that I'm not using, I'm just going to right click, just unclick them, and it just takes them out for me. You can click anywhere. You don't have to be on the actual one that you're removing, and it just takes them out. It just tidies it up for you. So then the ones that you are using are there. Again, it's easy to add them back in again. So if you take one out by mistake, or you think, actually, I need this one now, you can just right click and add them back in again. It's as simple as that. And again, you've got the default option as well. So right clicking, down at the bottom, you've got Use Defaults. Click on that, pops them all back in again. So they're all back there again for you. But it just makes it a bit easier for you to use it if you know that you can hide some in the background that you're not actually using. We've also got the same for your toolbar along here as well. So if you want to add columns in, if you want to take columns out on there, so if you right click anywhere on here, you can see there's quite a few that you can add in on here. So I've got my foreign balance on there. Say I don't want to see that anymore, you can just click on that, it'll take it out for me. The same with if I want to add something in, I can click on it, I can have my payment due, I can pop a column in for that on there. Now I've got that column added in there as well. That also goes for if you were within one of your activity windows. So if I open up a batch invoice window, we've got all of these headings across here. You might not use, say, department, you might not use charities or projects, and you're having to tab past these every time. What you can do is you can just right click on them. You can choose what you've got in here. So if we go into here, say I don't use departments, you can click on that, it'll remove it. If I'm not using charities, again, I can right click on that, click on fund, and it just removes that out there for me. So just using the ones that I actually need when I'm creating those invoices. That goes for sort of other areas in here as well. So if you're in suppliers, you've got the same options. You can right click, you can customize, you can add in what you want to see, and you can take things out as well. So it's good to have a play around with. That's why I thought I'll show you the demonstration data first, because if you want to have a play around with it in there first without affecting any of your data, then you can do it in there as well. Obviously, using the defaults, that just resets it for you as well. So if you ever want to get back to the first point on there, you can just click on that reset. We've also got the Chase Debt View as well. So if we go back into customers, so the Chase Debt View, that's available from your standard and professional level of the product. So if you're using essentials, you won't see that in there. But if you are using standard or professional, you can see what's outstanding and overdue. And that's just here. So you've got your standard view, which it defaults to. But if we click on Chase Debt, what it'll do is it'll just rejig all that for me. And it'll give you a preset filters that you can toggle as well on here. So if we have a look over here, we've now got preset filters. We can see at the moment, we've got everything that's overdue showing. We can see there's a filter applied when we've clicked on the Chase Debt View on there. We've now got 33 of our 42 records showing. But you can use the drop down as well. So say you wanted to see anything that was over 120 days old, click on that and it'll pull it through for us on there. You can change how many days that they're due in as well on there just by typing in here. So if I wanted to say within 30 days, I can type that in there, run that from there as well. So there's quite a few different things that you can do in the Chase Debt View on there for it. So if we scroll down, so we've got the overdue, promise, disputes. So there's quite a few different things. Anything that's over the credit limit. There's so many different things that you can sort of toggle on there for it. From within here as well, I'll just clear that on there. From within here, when you're in the Chase Debt View too, what you can do is add in aged period columns. So if you right click along the headings here, you've got all of these options again. You can add columns into it. So if I just right click and I'm going to add these in. And what this does is it gives you a view of your age debtors without having to actually run the report on there. So I pop all those in there. You've now got basically an age debtors report without having to run that report. You can just see it at a glance on there. So that's quite handy as well. And just again, taking the back off, right clicking, and you can just right click on them again just to take those columns back out. It's just another way of just seeing the data on there from a different sort of perspective without having to run a report for it. You can see they're quite easy just to take back out. Then you can just change it back to your standard view. So once you don't want it on that view anymore, you can click on standard view. It'll reconvert it again. I've got all my records showing. The filter's now gone off there. The drop-down box is gone. So that's just an alternative way to have a look at the data on there. If you're somebody who is quite quick with using your keyboard as well, so I prefer to use my mouse to click on things, but you can also use your keyboard to navigate around the program as well. So if you hit, when you're in Sage, if you hit the Alt key, just left of your spacebar on your keyboard, you'll see it brings up, we've got a load of numbers on the vertical, and then along the horizontal, we've got letters on there. So say I wanted to go into my suppliers. So if I have a look at my suppliers, it's 08. So if I just hit 08 on my keyboard, and it takes me into my suppliers. If I tap on Alt again, I can see I want to make a supplier payment, SP. So if I just hit SP on my keyboard, it will open up a supplier payment window for me. So it's something that over time, if you're quite quick with using your keyboard, you might find that a quicker way of sort of navigating around on there. So if I just hit that again so you can see that. So it's the Alt key, and then you're just choosing the number that you want to go into. So say I want to go into customers 04, and it just takes me straight into it. I tab the Alt key again, just left of the space bar. I'm wanting to open anything up on there. You can hit C, it's going to open up the connected services along the top for me. So it's just a quicker way. If you're quite quick with using your keyboard, you might find that a quicker way of navigating around the actual software itself. I'll just pop back to my slides for a moment there. So something else you can do is have alternate row colours as well to your lists in each module of Sage 50 accounts. So this is something that just makes it a bit easier to find the information that you're looking for. When you've got large lists of records and transactions, sometimes it can be quite hard to see what you're looking for and sort of follow the line across on the screen. So you can access from the tools at the top, and then the options, and then the environment tab. But we'll have a look at that in the programme there. It is PC specific, so it'll change for anybody who uses Sage on that particular PC. So it's for all of your companies within Sage as well. But if obviously you're logged onto a different PC, it's not something that's going to hold on there because it is something that's PC specific. So we'll have a look at that on there. So if we go to Tools at the top and Options, and again, just that window, just to say that it's going to close any open windows in the background. It's opened up on my other screen, so I'll just drag that over. And if we go to colours, we've got these options in here. So the colour theme, that refers to, so down the side here, we've got this as light at the moment. If I change that to dark, some people prefer it as a dark mode on there. If I click that, and I'm going to say OK to that, it'll bring up a message just to say that the colour theme will only be changed once the application's restarted. So if I say OK to that, and I'm going to just close out of it, just say no to my backup on there, just so I can reopen it and show you again. And some people prefer this if you've got your computer in dark mode as well. I know some of my colleagues use theirs in dark mode just for light sensitivity, really. But if I'm just opening my company, it's just opened up on the other screen there. So I'm just clicking into that, and it's just going through configuring those connected services. And then I'll show you what I mean by that dark mode there. Just opening that there now. You can see now we've got it, it's all dark down the side on there. Close out of that. So if we go back into Tools and Options, where this option was, I'll just pull that back over there. We go back into our Colours tab. You can see even the tabs along the top here, they've gone dark as well. We've also got the option to have alternate row colours within each module on there. So if we have a look at nominal codes, so if we click on the little dropper, it brings up this colour tab on here that we can choose a colour from. What I would say is stay away from the dark colours, and I'll show you why. So if I select black, say OK to that, you can't see anything. I'll show you what it looks like within there as well. So that was our nominal code. So if we go into nominal codes, it's quite harsh on the eyes, in fact, and you can only see every other line. So we'll go back in and change that, because that's not very pleasant to look at. We'll have a look at a lighter colour. So if we go back into our Tools and Options, Colours, click on the little dropper, and you can choose a lighter colour. You can customise your colours as well. So if we click on there, you can pick a colour, you can add that to your custom colours, and we could use that one. So if I click OK to that, lovely purple colour, OK to that. If we go back into nominal codes, you can see now a little bit easier on the eyes, but also you can follow those lines across. So obviously you can choose a colour of your choice on there, but it is just something that you can choose and you can pop in there as well. And it doesn't change, it's only changing the modules that I've got clicked on as well. So if I go to bank accounts, that's remained the same, just that standard sort of grey hue and sort of white. The rest of them have all remained the same because I only changed nominal codes. You can remove the lines altogether as well. So if we go back into Tools and Options, I'll just pull that back over. Go to Colours, just click on white, OK to that, and it'll just remove it altogether. I'll go back into our nominal codes there. And then you've just got a completely blank if you prefer it looking like that. Some people do prefer it to look like that as well. Another thing I'll show you as well is Sage is the selection style as well for when you're clicking on transactions. when you're clicking on sort of records, sorry, within the product. So at the moment, if we have a look, when I click, if I'm not holding any of the keys down on the keyboard, I can only click on one at a time. And that's because it's set to Windows selection style by default on there. So that just uses standard Windows keyboard shortcuts. If I hold down my control key on my keyboard, it will then highlight multiple ones for me. If I want to highlight sort of chunks of data, if I highlight the top one and say I wanted to highlight all the way down to here, if I hold the Shift key down and then hit it, it will highlight whole chunks of it for me. If, however, you're somebody who you just want it to sort of click on lines and highlight the line every time that you're on there, you can change this to the Sage selection style. And that's just back into Tools at the top and Options again. Again, just that pop-up that just says it's going to close any open windows there. And if we click on the Environment tab this time at the top, and I'm just going to change it to Sage selection style. So beforehand we had the Windows selection style. Click OK. And this is PC specific as well. So if you change that, it'll sort of hold on to it on this PC here. And now if I click, I'm not holding anything down on my keyboard, and then I can highlight records on there as well. So there's no sort of keyboard shortcuts needed for that if you wanted to change it to that. But that's a good tip there if you just want to change how you're highlighting your transactions or your records in the background there. You can also hide deleted transactions as well. So if you've got some deleted transactions, you don't want them showing in your customers or your suppliers activity. That's something that you can hide in the background as well. So if we go into our suppliers, I'll just show you what I mean by that. So we go into this supplier here, and I'm just going to open up the activity by clicking on activity at the top. And you can see in here, I've got some deleted transactions in the actual program itself there. So these appear red, so they're quite obvious to see. But if I was to send the data to Excel, or just by clicking on send to Excel just at the top there, and Excel will just have a little think about it and transfer that data over for me. When you transfer it over to Excel, they're not in red. So for all, it does say deleted in the details column on there. If you are somebody who's transferring the data to Excel on there, it's quite hard to see those deleted ones. So it's something that you might want to remove those deleted transactions out of the program within the activity, just in the background on there. So they're still showing the audit trail just for auditing purposes, but it will remove it for you from the actual the activity of the customer or the supplier. So if I close out of that, I'm not going to save that, and we'll just open Sage back up. So I'm going to close my activity window. And if I go up to settings just at the top there, and I'm going to open up company preferences. I'm just going to say yes. Again, just that message just to say it's closing the windows. It'll ask you for your password. Just pop that password in there. It's just opened on my other screen. Drag that over. You can see from changing that, these are still dark along the top on here as well. If I click on the parameters tab, you'll get a lot of tick boxes within the others option at the bottom here. And there's one just on the top left-hand side that says exclude deleted transactions. If I tick that, now I just go OK. We'll just go back into the activity, my suppliers, to Kev's Cakes, and I'm just going to look at the activity again. You'll see those transactions are no longer showing within the activity. So they're still there on the audit trail. So I'll show you that in the moment, but it just means that you haven't got them obscuring your view when you're having a look at the transactions on there. They're out of the way. It tidies it up a little bit for you. So I close out of the activity there. And don't worry, I do feel obviously there is a lot of information that I'm giving you here, but that you will get a recording of this as well at the end just to go through and have a look at. But if I go through to my transactions, I'm just going to click on number, which will just toggle them for me, just so I can have the most recent ones at the top, just so it's a bit easier. But there we can see we've got the deleted transactions. So they're still on the audit trail, just for your auditing purposes. It just removes it out of those activity windows in the background there. Another tip is batch changes. So you can make batch changes to multiple records all at once on there. It's something that's not available again in Essentials, but you can import data. So if you are wanting to make batch changes, you can still get around that by importing the data, which there is a really good webinar on information that you can import on there. So I'll not go into that bit too much. But for standard and professional level on there is a batch changes function. So you'll see just along the top here, it's grayed out at the moment, and that's just because I don't have anything highlighted. As soon as I highlight something, it becomes available. If you can't see batch changes along the top, it may just be, I'll just minimize my screen a little bit. So if I make it a bit smaller, if you're using a smaller laptop screen, it'll bunch some of them up and it just pops it under new and edit, and you've got batch changes there, just if you can't see that on your screen. I'll just maximize that again. So for that on there, it's available within your customers, your suppliers, products and services and fixed assets module, but you can make batch changes to multiple records at once on there. So I'll just show you what that looks like. So if I select these customers here, and I'll just change the credit limit, for example. So if I click on batch changes at the top, it'll open up a blank customer window and it says batch changes along the top there. So you'll see some things are grayed out. So some things you can't make batch changes for. You can't change the account reference, for example, or the balance on there or the VAT number. But if I click on credit control on the left-hand side, and if I just change the credit limit to 500, I think it's 1,000 at the moment. Yes, 1,000 at the moment. So if I change it to 500, and I'm just going to click save, you'll be presented with a message that just says that you've chosen to make changes to multiple records. Do you want to save those changes? I'm just going to say yes. That's just so you know that you're making changes to multiple ones and you're not just changing one at a time on there. And now we can see all these customers have got a credit limit of £500 on there. So if you are looking at making sort of multiple changes to records on there, that batch changes is quite a good function. As I say, if you are using Essentials, you can still do that, but it's just using the import option, and it would just be importing those changes instead. Something else you can do is flag records as inactive. So you can use the inactive flag just to hide old or unused customers, suppliers or products or nominal codes or bank records from your list without needing to delete them. It does need to meet certain criteria. So there is a good Help Centre article on there which goes into it in more detail, but it's just things like it needs to have a zero balance and there can't be any unallocated transactions on there. But if we go into our products and services, and I'll just show you what that would look like. So say you've got, we'll choose this one here, for example. Say this product, you're no longer using it at the moment. You don't want to delete it because you might use it again down the line. You just want to mark it as inactive. If we double click on it, just to open up that product record, and there's an inactive tick box just here. You'll see there's a little green question mark. If I click on that, it's opened on the other screen, so I'll drag that over. And it just says, set the product as inactive to prevent any further activity on the item. You can exclude inactive products from ledgers and selection lists as well. So if I just tick that box, and I'm just going to save that and close it. And if I add in a column, so if I just right click on here, and I'm just going to select and put a column in just to show inactive records. So now I can see my desktop calculator, it's an inactive record. So at the moment it's showing in here because if we look in the top right-hand corner, we've got include inactive ticked. If I untick that, it just removes that from the list for me. So it's still there in the background. So you might have some products or services that you're no longer using. You don't want to delete them. You want them there in the background in case you need to make them active again. You can just mark them as inactive. If you tick that box, you'll just see all of your active information in there rather than seeing all of your inactive ones as well. We tick it again, brings it back so you can see a complete list of absolutely everything. And if down the line you want to make that active again, you can just double click on that record. I'm just going to tick that box again, click save, close that, and now it's active again on there. But it's just a way of sort of moving that out of the way in the background so you haven't got that obscuring the information that you're actually using there. Another good tip is setting a report as a favorite as well. So if you've got reports that you use quite regularly, but you find that you're having to go and search for it every time, you can mark a report as favorite, and there's a couple of ways to access those. So if you say you've got a report, so if we click on our reports window, just on the top right there, and it'll open up my reports window for me. And because I don't have any favorites selected at the moment, it takes me straight to my report finder. So if I say I used a customer price list all the time, but I was forever having to sort of come in and find it in there, if I click on the star, it'll turn it yellow for me. And if I pop into my favorites now, it's got it in my favorites list. So beforehand, if I just untick it, I'll show you what the favorites list look like when you don't have anything in there. So if you're presented with this, it just means you haven't added anything into your favorites yet. So I'll go back to my price list. I'm going to highlight that as a favorite. If I close that, when I now open my reports, it'll default straight to my favorites page. And you can add multiple reports into here as well. So if you've got quite a few of them that you're using, rather than having to sort of search through every time and look for them, you've got all of the ones that you use all in one place, which just makes it a bit easier. You can also access your favorite reports from just up here as well, from favorites. So if I click on favorites, you'll see that I've got my customer price list in there as well. So even cutting out having to sort of click on reports at the top, you've got a drop down of all of your favorite reports on there, and these are across all of your modules as well. So you see I've got a customer list in there as well as an age creditors. So obviously some of them are not from the products and services module. You would have all of your favorite reports showing in there, and it just means you can come into there, quickly click on them, and it's just a bit quicker for you. Just to pop back to my slides for a moment there. You can also configure your F11 and F12 keys as well to activate the software of your choice. So that just means that you can click on F11 or click on F12 and it'll open either an exe file or a web page of your choice. So if you want to open up a web choice, you would need to start the path, and you can see just on here from the slide, you would need to start the path with CMD, then a space, a / C, then a space, then the word start and another space. Then you would put in the path for the web page on there. So you can see the first one I've got on here is a sneaky one, just to our webinar page on there. So if I click on F12 in my program, it should open up the webinars page, which I'll show you just in a moment. It is worth thinking about what you find that you refer to when you're working in Sage. So a lot of our customers use our tax code finder article. So if you think about when you're entering a transaction and you're unsure of which tax code to use, if you've configured either F11 or F12 just to open this up, it'll save you having to then go and open a browser, go and open the help center and look for the guide on there. It just opens it straight away from the program just by hitting one key on your keyboard. You could even add things like a link to the HMRC page if that's something that you sort of go to quite a bit on there. If there's any sort of web page you can pop on there and it'll open it straight from the program. You can also open executable files as well. So at the moment, F11 is set to open up My Control panel, but you can change this if you wanted to maybe open Excel, or if you're using your calculator on your PC or Notepad. Most people do tend to use it for open frequently used pages though, but you can change it at any point. It just saves you time when you need to open something when you're in Sage. You can just hit one of those buttons and it opens it straight up for you. So what I'll do is I'll pop back into my program and I can show you what that looks like. So back into here, so your function keys on here, it's set back up at tools again and options. So quite a few of them are in our tools and options on there. Again, you'll just get that message that just says it's going to close any unsaved data. Pull that back across. In the environment tab along the top, so it was just where we had our list selection style before, and you'll see at the moment F11 would open my control panel. So if I hit F11 on my keyboard, opens up my control panel there for me. F12, it should open up the webinars page. So if I click F12, it's opened it on the other page. Drag that over, you can see it's opened up the webinars page. So it's literally just hitting one of those buttons and popping it in there. So you can change these as well. So if I was to take out, I'll take out the end of that, and I need to have a space on the end, so that's important. So this is the bit that you need to have in there, is CMD, then a space, a /, C for Charlie, space, the word start, and another space after that. Then you're just going to paste in a web address. So if I go back to where I've got the webinars on there, and if I just go and have a look, and if we search for, click on Help Center, click on 50 accounts, so we get things for the 50 accounts on there, customize, or use your tax code on there. So UK, I think it's the tax code finder. I do a search for that. Which tax code to use? UK only. So obviously this is the UK one. It's a great guide if you haven't seen it before, if you're not sure which tax code to use. It asks you a series of questions, and you just click on, if it's sale, purchase, bank charge or interest, it'll take you to the next set of questions until it whittles it down to give you an idea of the tax code that you should be using as well if you're not too sure. But if I highlight this at the top, I'm just going to right click, copy it, and then if I close that, I'm just going to paste that on the end. So we need to make sure there is a space at the end. If I paste that on there, if I click OK, I'm going to hit F12, which will probably open on the other screen, which it has. Oh no, it hasn't. It's opened up this one. So we can see we've got which tax code to use. You can see it's a separate window because that's the original one that I opened before on there, and it takes you straight to that guide on there. So that's a really handy tip if it's something that you use quite often, or you know there's a page that you want to use, or there's a website that you want to use, or even your own website. You can pop it in there, either in F11 or F12, as long as you've got that starting point in there. I'll just open it back up to show you. And the environment, it's just that, and that's already in there, so you don't need to remember that or start writing that down. That's already in there, but that's what you need to start it with. And this is all on a guide which I'm going to show you as well, just so you've got that for your records as well there. Close out of that there as well. There's also remembering your logon details as well. So when you log on, if it's just yourself using the PC and you're just using your logon, I wouldn't use it for if you're using a public PC, just if you're using a private PC, but you can store your logon details. So if I go to File and I'm just going to log off, it'll bring up my logon on here. So I'm just going to pop in Manager, pop in my password, and if I click on Remember my logon details, and it even tells you it's not recommended on a shared or public device on there. So if you're using a shared or public device, I wouldn't use remember the logon details. If I click log on to that, it'll log me back in as manager. You can see I'm down as manager at the bottom, so it's logged me straight back in again. If I close out of it now, so I'm just going to File, I'm just going to exit out of it completely, just to show you when I reopen Sage, this time it's not going to now ask me for my login details. It'll just take me straight into it on there. So bear with me just while I log back into that on there. Just click back on that. And like I say, it is something that if you're using, you've got multiple users on one PC, if you've got different users set up just on the one PC that you're using, I wouldn't use the save the logon details if you're using multiple users, because you would just get logged in as the same person every time there. But it's just taken me straight in as manager again. So it hasn't asked for my logon details, it's just popped me straight in. You can remove that from there as well, because I have had calls when I used to work on tech support where it just takes you straight in. You don't know how to remove that and get back to that starting point just by going to settings at the top, all the way down to user management, and then delete stored logon details. I click on that, it'll open up a little window on there just telling me that it's going to delete those stored logon details, and it deletes the stored logon details for the current Windows user for this company. So if you've got details or you've got your logon saved for another company, it's for this particular company on here. So I'm just going to click delete stored logon details, and that's that done. So next time I log in, it's then going to ask me to log back in with my username and my password. We also have scheduled backups as well. So this is always set up as standard on there. So it would only not be on if you've turned it off or if your IT have turned it off. but you need to be logged in as manager for this. So as long as you're logged in as manager, you can see just in the bottom left-hand side, if you're logged in as manager there, if you go to File at the top, Schedule Backup, it'll open up a little window for us. And if we click on Settings on the left-hand side here, this basically gives you the option. It'll check the data for you and it'll run a scheduled backup at a particular time that you're setting on there. So that they're set to run automatically, even if you don't have the software open. If you don't have it open, that's fine. It'll still run in the background. The PC would need to be on, and it's wherever your data is stored where the backup would go to. But if we just have a look here, you can choose which automated process you want to run and how often. So you can check your data, which is always a good idea because then it's going to flag up if there are any issues there and you get to find out straight away. And also enable automatic backup as well. So a lot of people just run it once a day at 5 o'clock. So just as people sort of are going home on there, it'll run that schedule, check data and a backup on there. You can change that if you want to. So if you'd rather run it more frequently, you can run it multiple times a day. You could run it every hour if you wanted to. There is a drop down, so you can choose on there. So you could do it every 12 or 6 or 3 hours, and you can choose a time to start that from as well on there. If you have multiple companies as well, so say you've got some old companies that you're not using and you don't want to take backups for, but you've just got them in there to refer back to, you can untick the companies that you don't want backups running for, and equally you can tick the ones that you want them to run for as well. And you can also choose the file types that you want to back up. So most people tend to run a scheduled backup just with the account's data every day, because if you're running a backup for absolutely everything, including things like archives and transaction attachments, the size of those backups is going to mount up quite quickly on there. But you can always do a manual backup at any point as well there. But your scheduled backup, that would run, how often that you've set it to basically on there. Gives you the option to choose that backup location. That would just be where your data is held on there. And there's also a limit as well. So any new backup files would not be created, it says on here, on the server's hard drive if it runs out of space. So you can change the figure on here if you want to. So it's set by default to 20 on there, but you can change that to say, if I'm getting down and I've only got 5 gigabytes left of data on there, I can change that and just click save, and it'll just save those details for me on there. If you were wanting to do a manual backup, you would just be going into File, clicking on Backup. Of course, it's opened on the other page. I'll pull that over, and then you can take a manual backup on there, and you can decide what you want to take a backup of. You can take backups. You don't have to always have the data files in there. If you just wanted to take a one-off backup of just your reports and your layouts, you can do that separately as well. But generally, you would normally include your data files with all of the backups that you're doing on there. But that's your scheduled backup, and that's your manual backup on there. We'll pop back into our slides there. So I'll keep this open just for a little bit longer because I can see there was a few questions that are coming through. It looks like we're pretty much on top of them on there, just while my guys finish answering those last few questions. Don't forget, you are going to get a recording of today's session in around about an hour's time by email as well, because I appreciate there's a lot of information in there to sort of take on board. But if then you do want to watch it back at your own pace, or give it to a colleague just to watch, and then that's available for them as well on there. But as promised, I have included some links to some useful guides on our help centre, which you can visit at sage.co.uk/help, or just by downloading today's slides as well and clicking on the links there as well. But there was a lot, like I say, there was a lot covered on there. There is the information on the guide, which is customise your software. I'll pop back in and I'll just show you that. So if I just go back into our help centre, and if I just search for customise your software. And this, so if we search for customise your software, this guy's here, it literally goes through all the bits that we've covered in today's webinar, and it just means that you can go through it at your own pace. That link is on the guide there as well, but it just means that everything's in here. You've got selecting multiple records, hiding your transactions, inactive records, favorites and layouts, and configuring those, the F11 and 12 on there as well. So those are all there in the background. So I just thought I'd show you that too, but that's just this link on there for you. And I've also included a guide for the keyboard shortcuts as well, so you can navigate and access options in the software quicker, just along with the details for the function keys, which you might find useful, and you can refer to that as well on there, just if you're quite quick with your keyboard. You can access our webinars page at sage.co.uk/webinars. All the past recordings are free to view in there, along with signing up for the upcoming webinars, just on the link on the slide there too. Coming up this afternoon, we've got Running Your Year End, that's with Abby. And then on Monday, we've got your VAT Return Part 1, Prepare and Reconcile with Ease. But there's obviously lots more in there as well to get signed up for. And just while we're finishing answering those last few questions, just a reminder that we have our one-to-one bespoke training sessions too. So these are block hour sessions, which are over Teams with one of our trainers, and they can just provide you answers and just questions. If you've got any questions around how you want to use your software, they can provide that for you. So it might be that you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of the software, or you've got new starters who are getting started up and you just want to get them up to speed on using the software. But if it does sound like something that you would find useful, you just pop us an email at that lsenablement1@365sage.net. It's just on the slide there, and then we'll just get back in touch with you just with some more information. That does bring us to the end of today's session. So I hope you've found some of those tips useful and it makes things a bit easier for you on there. But as always, you'll get a survey when leaving today's session. So I'd love it if you could leave me any feedback, or if you've got any comments around what else you'd like to see a webinar on, perhaps then we could look at that too. Or if you'd like to see anything done differently, well, that's always is good to see as well there. But for now, thank you for attending, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day there.